me put a little raise in.
Whole lot of money, whole lot of money, got a whole lot of money, whole lot of money, I got a whole lot of money, whole lot of money, got a whole lot of money. You can't hold nothing from me.
What's up,
I got
guys?
a whole lot of money, I got
Here.
a
Welcome to another edition of the Pineapple Squad Fantasy Football Podcast. Week 4 is in the books, and we're starting to see some separation in the standings. We got my boy Hooch absolutely running through the league at 4-0. We have a couple of guys who seem to be content with their one and only win this season. I would be included in that group. But we're going to get into the recap of this week. I'm going to hit you with the update on the standings. We're going to look at some waiver action, see what you guys have been up to. So, boys, let's get right into this action from the past week. Boom. All right. Call me Nostradamus because I called the shit out of this matchup of the week. We had two one-win teams looking to build some momentum on the season and keep the victory train rolling. As MJ's team, the Shark Knight Rises, faced off against Bears squad White House Brown. This was a high-scoring, exciting contest that came down to a Monday night tight end. Coincidentally, Monday night tight end, also the title of Bears sex tape. Boom, roasted. Starting with MJ's squad, we had Minshew's mustache rebounding from a terrible Thursday night last week for 350 yards and 2 touchdowns on his way to 25 points. 8 of his completions in both scores went to DJ Baby Chark, who adds 29 points. George Kittle showed he is officially back from his injury problems by dropping a 40-burger on Bears' ass. 15 catches for 183 yards and a touchdown. CeeDee Lamb and Scary Terry got in on the action too, with CeeDee putting up 2 tutties and Terry catching 10 for 118 yards. The only downside for Pineapples this week was Austin Eckler going out with a hammy injury after only 2 points. He ends up with his best score of the year so far, but it wouldn't be enough to fend off Bear Man. Bear is anchored this week by Joe Mixon, who beat MJ worse than he beat that white bitch in the KFC back in the day. Mixon rushed for 151 yards and 2 scores on 25, and he finishes the day with 42 points, had a receiving touchdown in there as well. Josh Allen continuing to ball out. He's absolutely killing it for Bear this season. 288 yards and 2 touchdowns for 29 points. Dalvin was cooking all day with 130 yards and 2 scores as well. He ends with 28 points. Bears could only manage 11 points against the Colts, but Allen Robinson still gets 100 yards and a touchdown for 23. Bear went into Monday night needing minimal points from Hayden Hurst, and he did provide, finishing the night with 4 catches for 51 yards and 9 points, more than enough for Bear. He takes the matchup of the week, 187 to 180, and moves his team to a 500 record. Congratulations, Bear. Our next closest matchup this week was the Battle of the Vins. Zeke and Destroy went up against the Dream, and Vinny Bananas added fantasy football to the list of things he's amazing at, along with smiling and being absolutely shredded. You're the only guy that can be called Vin in this league. I fully admit that now. Dak Prescott leads it off for the Banana Man, and he had a massive fantasy day as them boys spent the second half playing catch up with the Browns. Their defense looks awful, but the offense was cooking all day. Dak loses the game, but he ends up with 500 yards and 4 touchdowns for 45 points. Running back position stayed solid for Vin this week. Aaron Jones and the rookie Antonio Gibson both get a score and both finish the day with 22 points. The Lions still suck. Matt Patricia about to get his ass fired real soon, I'm guessing. But Kenny Golladay is efficient, 62 yards and a touchdown on only 4 catches. Cooper Kupp adds 17 points against the G-Men for Vinny Bananas. On the other side of this matchup, I once again left my Thursday night match feeling really good about myself. My last-minute kicker substitution paid off as Brandy McMandy was perfect on field goals and extra points against the Jets and finished the night with 18 points. Sunday, Lamar and Mark Andrews got their shit back together and combined for 49 points. Zeke underperformed. He only had 54 rushing yards, but again, the Cowboys were playing behind for about 2.5, 3 quarters of that game. He didn't get a touchdown, but he made up a little bit. He had 8 receptions for 71 yards. He finishes at 20 points on the day. Devontae Parker was productive for the Dolphins, catching 10 balls for 110 yards. But that was as good as it got for me. Newly acquired receivers Bobby Trees and the abolitionist John Brown combined for only 17 points. And Dave Montgomery, who I'm about fucking finished with, I'm done with that bum. He only gets me 10 points in a Bears loss to the Colts. Banana Man proves he is the only person in this league that deserves the title of Ben. Congratulations. He wins 155 to 141. All right. Up next, we have Coach Taylor trying to will his team to a bounce-back victory after his defeat to Bear last week against Skip, who, like me, was just trying to find a second win this year. Patty really only had one great performance this week, and that was from OBJ, who probably had his best game in a Browns uniform with 5 catches for 81 yards and 3 total touchdowns for 38 points. Keenan Allen finishes with 8 catches for 62 yards, and that's about it for the good news. The rest of the Skips team, honestly, was just a hot pile of garbage. Miles Sanders, Jonathan Taylor, both under 100 yards. Neither one of them had a touchdown. Evan Ingram had 6 catches, but only for 35 yards. And Julio did Julio things. The dude went out in the second quarter of the Monday night game. I think he re-injured his hammy. He didn't return. That's standard Julio stuff. I'm sure next week he'll get fucking 50 points for you, so don't worry. Adding to Pat's problems, it looks like in week 5, he'll be without Derrick Henry and Chris Godwin possibly, and maybe Julio as well. On the other side, Ate got a little more balanced performance from his team. Matt Stafford starts in place of Big Ben, who had a bye this week. He puts up a solid 28 points on 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. Melvin Gordon looked good against a bad Jets team. He rushes for over 100 and adds 2 scores. Mike Evans takes advantage of Godwin being out this week. 7 catches for 122 yards and a touchdown. And Kareem Hunt steps in for the injured Nick Chubb early in that game, for a while at least, and adds 2 scores and 19 points. Ange's team looked good, but he did get the bad news that Chubb is on IR, probably out for around 6 weeks. But Ange does win this one 137 to 116 and moves to 3-1, while Pat is still looking for his second win. All right, next up we've got masturbating with Mahomes against Kenyon. Dig it. Gibbs versus Brown. This was an interesting match leading up to Monday night because there was still a chance Gibbsy would be without Pat Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Rex Burkhead. As it turned out, the NFL did allow that game to go forward despite Cam Newton getting a positive test, and Gibbs was able to keep his original lineup. Mahomes had a fairly average game by his standards, only finishing with 23 points on 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. Freak was the recipient of one of those touchdowns, and he had 16 points. Rex Burkhead had a ridiculous week 3. I'm sorry. What week were we in? He had a ridiculous week 2. This was week 3. He did not have the same game. He only had 45 yards on the ground. He had no scores, could not find the end zone. He did have Adam Thielen, though, who helped get Bill O'Brien's ass fired when he put up 114 yards and a touchdown in the Vikings' big win against the Texans. Will Fuller also looking good in that game with 100 yards of his own and a score. Brown would once again rely on Kamara to keep him close in this contest, but the star running back only managed 83 yards on the ground, 3 catches, and 1 touchdown for 20 points. Cardinals appeared to suck balls this year again. I have no faith in Cliff Kingsbury. I think he's a douche lord, and he will be fired at some point. But regardless, Kyler's still putting points up for Brown. He finishes with 3 total touchdowns for 28 points. DK and Jerry Jeudy both score 14 for Brown at the receiver spot, and Stephon Diggs still benefiting from Josh Allen's great season. He has 6 catches for 115 yards and 17 points. Calvin Ridley, on the other hand, he went from being a top 5 receiver and Matt Ryan's seemingly favorite target this year to laying a goose egg and missing all 5 of his targets in the Monday night game. If I was Brown, I would just drop Calvin Ridley's bum ass to the waiver wire. You don't need him anymore. He's clearly done. Maybe I can take him off your hands for you. I'm just saying. Anyway, Ian gets this one, 133 to 112. and moves his team to 3-1, currently tied for second place. Excuse me, in our final match of the week, we have a battle of the attractive hillbillies in the least competitive matchup this week as Hooch faces off against Mitch. Coming into this game, Hooch had been running through the league. Could Mitch finally be the one to stop him? No. The short answer is no, that did not happen. We all know Mitch has been facing some injury problems. In fact, earlier this week or last week, I believe, we did the math and figured out half of the top 10 guys he drafted had been injured or were on injury at some point last week. It's a bad situation for him. He is getting Le'Veon back this week, I believe, or soon. So that's going to help a little bit. Michael Thomas and Devontae Adams should be coming back soon as well. But he currently is still dealing with a bunch of injuries. Let's see what we got here. Despite that his team didn't look super terrible, he still ends up with 124 points. The Texans lost and fired their coach, but Deshaun still had 300 yards and a couple of scores for 25 points. Waiver pickup Miles Davis continues to look good. He gets 22 points on 84 yards and a touchdown, along with 5 receptions. Darren Waller had 9 for 88 yards, and Devin Singletary adds 5 receptions and a rushing touchdown for 18 points. His starting wide receivers offered no help as the law firm of Marquez, Valdez, and Scantling, along with Anthony Miller, only combined for 13 points. Mitch really looked forward to getting Adams and Thomas back ASAP. Hopefully, you can get all your dudes back and be a second-half team this year. Over to Hooch's team, or as I'm now calling it, the Thunderdome. Russ Wilson had a solid day with 360 yards and 2 touchdowns for 24 points. Although, unlike last week, only 2 of those receptions went to Tyler Lockett, and he ends with a disappointing 6 points. Lockett, that is, not Wilson. Don't worry, though, the rest of his team did just fine. 2 touchdowns and 19 points for Gurley, 72 yards and a touchdown for tight end Dalton Schultz. And Chris Carson gets 2 touchdowns on 16 rushes for 25 points. Besides Lockett, everyone else on Hooch's team had double-digit points. Man, am I glad I'm not playing him next week. Oh, shit. All right. Hooch wins that one 158 to 124 and stays perfect on the season. Let's take a look at these updated standings here. We have Hooch dominating the league at 4-0. We have a tie for second currently as Andrew and Ian both have 3 wins. 3 teams sitting at 500. That would be Brown, White House Brown, and the Dream. So Brome Bear and Vinny Bananas sitting there. And then 4 teams who are just wallowing in our own misery for another week at 1 and 3. Our matchup for the week for week 5 is going to be a battle of the second place teams. This is going to be Andres 3000 going up against Masturbating with Mahomies. The winner of this takes sole possession of second place and moves 1 step closer to never beating Hooch. So have fun with that. I like Andrew in this one as I look for Big Ben to return from his week off well rested and ready to demolish a shitty Eagles team. Eagles suck. They're somehow in first place in that division because of that stupid tie, but Pittsburgh's about to lay a fucking beat down on them. Honestly, this is probably going to come down to how well the Browns can play against the stingy Colts defense. Andrew, I'm assuming, is going to start Kareem Hunt along with Jarvis. So if they can get it rolling and get some points, then I look for Andrew to take that win this week. All right, finally, let's take a look at some recent activity for this week. There's a couple of stuff this week. There's a couple of waiver pickups this week. I was a little surprised. I haven't really looked at these. I'm going to look at these for the first time with you guys. Wednesday, October 7th. Here we go. We have, where's the big one? Where was the $22? Here we go. Roan adds Dearness Johnson, a running back for the Brownies, for $22. He drops Austin Hooper. I don't blame you for that one. The Browns they have like 3 or 4 tight ends they throw to, and Joker's coming back. So that's going to take away even more touches for Austin Hooper. We had Big Hooch picking up Justin Jackson, running back for the Chargers, for $12. We had Mrs. Pineapple. See, here's the problem is I always forget what your guys' team names are, and it fucks me up. Mrs. Pineapple is Pat. He adds Eric Ebron, tight end for the Steelers, for $6. I know you're not going to play him this week because I'm giving you Hunter Henry, That's not a bad pickup, especially against the Eagles. I have a feeling the Steelers are going to put up about 45 points on those fools. Besides that, it looks like Pat also dropped Greg Ward. He adds Laviska Shenault Jr., who I know who that is this time. Last time I did not. Now I know. For $8, we had Cooch also adding Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley still in the league? Jesus Christ, who knew? Cole Beasley gets added for $4. You guys can see why I'm so good at fantasy football. I clearly don't even know who's still in the league. Oh, man. Pat rode Joe Burrow. He was looking good on your bench, but Pat finally gives up on the Joe Burrow experiment. I feel you, man. You need to have spots open on your bench. Your team has some injury problems. He adds Jamal Williams, running back from Green Bay, for $0. We have Mitch adding Traquan Smith for $2. That's pretty much it for the money. A couple of other things to look at. We have Ian adding J.D. McKissick, running back for Washington. We have Pat adding Keyshawn Vaughn, Tampa Bay running back. And then that's pretty much it. We had that trade go through. It should be going through a little bit later this evening. Pat and I make a little trade there, hooking him up with a solid tight end. Nothing really else to talk about here. Oh, I do see that Pat did add David Njoku. All right, I see Pat added Joker there. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up this week, guys. I apologize for the shitty video quality. Kelsey is out of town this weekend, so you know your boy's going to party. And by party, I mean hang out with Delilah and drink some beer. That's it. But she took a good computer, so I'm using my old shitty one. So my camera doesn't work very well. It looks like shit. It might be slow. If you see some like old 90s porn pop up on this, just ignore it, please. Thank you. All right, that's going to do it for me. Thank you for watching again. I love you guys. Good luck to everyone this week. Cheers to the Thursday night crew.
Let me put a little raisin.
Whole lot of money. Whole lot of money. Got a whole lot of money. Whole lot of money. I got a whole lot of money. Whole lot of money. Got a whole lot of money. You can't hold nothing from me. I got a whole